Overview of our fourth session of our Castles and Crusades campaign. It's set in my homebrew setting, which in the area that they're playing in is taking a lot of influence from this book, which is really good. Deep dive into Celtic lore. With this setting, the town that they live in is a town called Arden, and it is Halloween season is upon them, and the town's beginning to celebrate. It's a multi-day celebration. The players, I had 3 for this game. We had Barry Cotter, who's a wizard. We had Sprawl Earthshade as a dwarven cleric. We had his brother Agrax Earthshade. Yes, he's named after the Games Workshop wash. I had those 3, and they had an NPC with them as well, Aiden, who is a cleric, another cleric. They started off in town kind of on their own. They're all friends. They started off just explaining what they do or how they start their day. And then it moved into getting together at the one of the biggest mead halls in town, having lunch together, and just trying to figure out what they were going to do for the day as the town prepared for its celebration. One of the things they learned while they were at the mead hall was the chieftain of the town, some of his personal soldiers came in, and they're called the Wolves of Arden, and they were talking about how the chieftain Connell wants to restore this old stronghold that fell over 100 years ago, but one of his goals is to get that stored. So that kind of stirred some thought with them about maybe sneaking ahead or doing that on their own. They ended up leaving and going out to see the dwarves. Their grandmother is like one of the wise women of the town. She was going to tell a story of how the hall, the dwarven hall that fell, that they're all ancestors from, and the story of that, and how the first king of that hall developed that kingdom. And they went out there and took part of that story and listened in. And then after that, as that was breaking up, they noticed a woman in the crowd that was kind of like flummoxed and looking for somebody, and they approached her, and come to find out she was a priestess acolyte of the temple of Caduceus, which is one of the gods that the people in the town worship. And she was looking for this guy named Brogan that is the leader of that temple. Couldn't find him, so he had gone off to the barrows where the town inter their dead to pay respects to the warriors and the fallen out there, and had not returned. So they set off to find him. As they did so, they traipsed through the woods of outside of the town till they got to the barrows, and by this time night had fallen. They started through here, and they found it was pretty quiet. One of the things they did notice that there was no sound, like it was very quiet, no animal sounds or anything. They found a couple satchels full of candles, which they know would have been placed at the barrows to mark and just pay respects. So they picked those up, and when they did that, one of the dwarves, it was Agrax, threw an unlit candle into a open door of one of the barrows, and then these 3 skeletons came out, and they did battle with them, and that went pretty well. They got a little banged up, but they persevered over that fight pretty quick. And after doing some healing, they actually went into the barrow, and they found a blank scroll, which they kind of was able to determine that it was a spent scroll, like somebody had used it and just left it behind. They continued on until they got to the temple of Caduceus, and there as they approached, they heard chanting. Got a little bit closer. None of them are really great at sneaking, so They got a little closer. They saw a figure in red robes at the top holding a book, and he was chanting. And they saw a few figures moving around, but at the time they couldn't get really close. So they got closer. The barbarian, Agrax is actually a barbarian. He was able to actually rolled a really good check to try to move silently and was able to move off. But Barry the wizard was not as lucky, and Sprawl and Aiden just openly confronted these people to kind of be a distraction. Not long after that, combat ensued. Barry was hurt right off the bat from an archer that hit him with an arrow and almost killed him. Their first level, so they're not very tough. They proceeded to engage with them. Barry did get off a magic missile, which with the intent to shoot the book out of this guy's hand, which he actually was successful to do. He hit him, but he also knocked the book out of his hand. This guy cast darkness and covered this area in darkness, so they lost sight of him after that, and actually never saw him again. Before that, before he cast darkness, he summoned these little guys using one of the spells in the Castles and Crusades, one of the supplement books, and he brought forth these like quarter-sized little mains, and which set the party back a little bit because they realized they were greatly outnumbered, but they continued to press on. They also knew that before the darkness spell was cast, they were able to see that the priest that they were looking for, Brogon, was there. So they were bent on trying to save him. It was a pretty tough fight. 3 out of the 4 party members, including the NPC, were down to 1 hit point before it was over. The barbarian, Agrax, he was the MVP because he slew 4 out of the 5 cultists on his own, and then at least 1 or 2 of these little quarter-sized mains. So they were able to rescue Brogon, and they also recovered the book that this guy dropped. And they can't read it. It's in a language they don't understand, but they know on the cover there was a symbol, and it was a symbol that all the cultists were wearing, and it's of an entity known as Meldeth the Destroyer, the God Slayer. And he was somebody that they haven't dove too far into the lore yet, but there was somebody they know that Caduceus, the god Caduceus, defeated a long time ago during what is called the Infernal War, and over 2,000 years ago. And the cult of Meldeth isn't something that's very common, and it's not good that obviously that they're back. And so it's that's where we ended, and it kind of set the tone. They're like, oh, the players were like, oh, that can't be good, which they're probably right. But yeah, so that's just a quick overview of what we accomplished in the session. It was a real good session. They did really well as far as facing superior numbers. We originally, for this game, we're going to have 5 players, and then through unforeseen circumstances, we dropped down to 3, and I didn't really change the encounters at all, so they were still able to persevere. That was some really tough fight, especially this one at the end. Like I said, 3 out of the 4 were down to one hit point, so they did good. So we're getting ready for the next one. Thanks for watching.